and welcome to More Than the Score. I'm Tony Moclair. This is a vodcast that I am fortunate and lucky enough to do with the great man named Troy Zantuck, the walking full football almanac. And we have a look at the golden years of the VFL, AFL, well, as often as we can here on Isolation TV. Troy, a very, very special guest today to follow up Diesel Williams from a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, thanks, Tone. Absolutely a pleasure to be with you once again, mate. And we're rolling out another legend, an incredible legend, if you don't mind. One of the icons of the 70s and 80s, one of the game changers, the Incredible Hulk, Rene Kink.
Welcome to More Than the Score. Troy, can we please have some stats that will, well, I mean, in my basic research, this is a bloke who's started playing at Victoria Park, if I'm not wrong, at the age of 16.
You're absolutely right, Tone. 181 games all up for the Incredible Hulk, 280 goals, played with the Magpies, then he went to the Bombers and finished his career at St Kilda. An absolute game changer, this man.
Rene Kink, welcome to More Than the Score. It's great to have you.
Look, it's great after Diesel Williams, and to have royalty on like that today with me being involved with you guys is just fantastic.
So many questions, I barely know where to start, Rene. I'm just going to start with one that's been doing my head in over the last couple of weeks as we prepared for this interview. The Kink surname. I want to know what image is on the family crest.
Well, my background is I've got a Latvian mother and an Estonian father.
Yeah.
Of course, one of your other famous footballers who played for North Melbourne, Arnold Rice, was Latvian, of course. So, that's where Kink comes from. My middle name is Ferdinand, which is Spanish, and Rene is French. So I'm a bit of an all-rounder. I'm pretty sure my mother is my mother, I hope. Yeah. I don't know if I'm the only kinky footballer ever played football, but I am a kink, you know. So, bit unusual.
That's Rene, it all started back in Ararat, my friend. This is a legend. 137 goals in a season in underage football. And I believe you kicked 22 goals in a game. Now, that certainly got the Magpie talent scouts. Their interest really peaked after that, I'd imagine, Rene.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. Just prior to me going to Collingwood and being brought down there as a young boy, it was the actual Essendon area. But it just changed, and Essendon then went right through the Wimmera, and Collingwood was part of the Hamilton, so on area through there. So I was lucky to come down to Collingwood, and Jack Regan, the famous fullback for Collingwood, came and had a chat to me and said, "You can play a little bit, son." And I said, "Yeah, that's nice." So it was 143 goals, Troy.
143. I robbed you of 6, Rene.
Yeah,
I did that on purpose, mate. I did that on purpose. I just wanted you to pick me up.
Yeah, well, I kicked 22-15 one game, and now this is under 16 football. I'm 15 years of age. The oval is only a 3/4 size oval, so it's not a full senior oval as in the local football or the as in the Wimmera Football League where Ararat is.
I wasn't going to mention that, Rene.
Yeah, so it helped when the ball came out of the centre and sort of found itself at my feet or in my hands, and I was lucky enough to turn around left foot or right foot and just another one through the middle.
Can I ask, Rene, I mean, you played for 3 clubs, you're most associated with Collingwood. Who did you barrack for growing up?
Well, great memories of watching Channel 7, of course, with Mike Williamson. And I just loved Melbourne because Melbourne was such a powerhouse around that sort of time when I was 13, 14, 15 watching football. And I just had an inclination. I really liked Melbourne. And next minute, before I could blink, I'm 16 and I'm at Victoria Park. So Collingwood has always been my love.
You'd get a game with Melbourne today if you rocked up. You realise that?
Yeah, aren't they hot and cold? That was so disappointing the other night. Just terrible. It's hard to work out what they are or who they are.
Rene, I just want to take you back to that year you made your debut, mate, 1973. Ironically, a Melbourne legend, a Melbourne superstar, made his debut in 73. A bloke called a great friend of mine and a great friend of my family's, Robbie Flower, made his debut in 73. You debuted against Fitzroy at the Junction Oval. You kicked 2 goals, and I believe those 2 goals were on Bulldog Murray. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Robbie Flower and I also went to Melbourne High together.
Yeah,
we had a team of 14 footballers there at Melbourne High that are either playing VFL or VFA. That's how good a side it was, and Robbie Flower was one of the players there. And the second year I was there at Melbourne High, we had 9 players that were either playing VFL or VFA, seconds, thirds, or whatever the case may have been. But I played on Kevin Bulldog at the Junction Oval when I was 16. I kicked 2 goals, I think it was, or 3. I'm not sure. Someone said 3, someone said 2. And then the next 2 games, I got dropped. Sorry, I came on at halftime. I got dropped the following week. Then I made my way back into the side on the bench in 2 games. I never got a run. And then I played my first full game on the MCG in 1973 in the Richmond preliminary final.
Can I ask, Rene, you mentioned, growing up you had smaller grounds. How did your game style have to adjust to the much larger grounds like the MCG? How did you find that transition?
Well, the transition, of course, is you come down to Collingwood, you play on a Victoria Park, you're playing on a far bigger ground, but also I was lucky that I had a very big-bodied 15, 16-year-old person. And I also used to train very hard on the weights and I had that explosive power. So I was able to, and also I had the ability to think about where the ball's going to be. So you put all that together and the ability to kick the ball a long way, either foot, I could fit in quite comfortably.
Rene, you mentioned that preliminary final. 3 goals on one of the Richmond legends of the time, Dick Clay. 98,000 attended that particular game. A 16-year-old, 3 goals on a legend of the game. What an amazing experience. What were your thoughts, firstly, on running down the race that particular day and also the car ride home after the game?
Well, you remember getting to the MCG, and I can't exactly remember how I got there, but that was all sort of engrossing in terms of the crowd walking through the car park and getting to the game, and then getting into the rooms, and you're 16 and you know that there's going to be 90,000 people there. It's your thoughts are just sort of purely focused on being out there and trying to do your best, knowing that you're going to play it full forward, knowing that you're taking Peter McKenna's place, and knowing that you've really got to be a part of the side, and that's to kick goals. So I went out and I kicked 3 goals, 4. We were 6 or 7 goals up at half time, Troy, I think.
Yeah.
And, Royce Hart came on, and for some reason, typical Collingwood, which we've done many a time, we stopped and looked at each other, and they came over the top of us, and we walked off defeated again in a final that was there to be won.
You mentioned losing that particular final, and then a statistic only too well is the number of losing grand finals you're in. What sort of psychological toll does that take, Rene? I was very, very keen to ask you that. I was going to ask you later, but that must weigh heavily.
It did. I was only talking this morning that to my mate, we're sort of out there riding bikes at the moment, which is terrific, trying to keep fit. But I was talking about different injuries that the body has incurred and so on, and the toll that it took on me over my career when I started such at a young age, and a lot of people don't understand that to start at 16 is like people just say, what, who played at 16? Because the modern game is what it is. And, going forward, at times particularly towards the end of my career, I lost a lot of interest in football. I could have easily given it away and said that's enough, because I played in 7 losing grand finals, 6 day ones, which is including the draw, and of course the night one at Waverley where Kerry Good marked the ball after the siren. I think there was 80-odd thousand there. And to go through all that over a long period, and to be at Collingwood under the scrutiny of the people watching, the media and so on, and at times I lost my way in what I wanted to do. Tommy had left. John Carlin came in to coach. Look, at times I just wasn't in the right place going forward, and I came out of it. I went to Essendon. I played there for a couple of years. I had a fallout with Sheedy, not hard to do. And then, of course, I went to St Kilda. They asked me to come down and give them a bit of a hand, because at the time, you remember, a few of the Carlton players were down there, Peter McConville, Wow Jones and so on. They'd come out of a bit of bankruptcy thing and so on. So I got down there and I played my last game last year, which I was 29 when I walked out the gates at St Kilda, and I was happy to retire. I wanted to retire that year, but Graham Jelly and Bill Stevens kept nagging me to come down and help, particularly also in the area of the young kids, a bit of boxing, which is one of my loves. And I walked out of the gate at 29. I said, leave me alone. I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to go into the media. Just leave me alone. And that's how I felt. I was mentally and physically really burnt out. It took a couple of years for me to come good and to regenerate.
Rene, you talk about the roller coaster ride of an AFL footballer. Most people think when you play league football, it's a bed of roses, but it certainly isn't. And I can speak from my family experience, with my brother-in-law. They've been at the coalface. They know what it's all about. They know the feelings that you felt. I just want to take you back, Rene, to 1976. Now, Collingwood wooden spooners that year. The reserves won the premiership. A year later, 12 months later, you're playing off for a flag. Can you explain what happened from 76 to 77? What was the change?
Of course, Murray Weedham came in to coach in 76. And Murray, legend of the club and most delightful person you will ever want to meet. But his training methods and his belief in how football should be played at that level was pretty, to be said, ordinary. In what he was trying to get us to do, and we were very unfit. Our mind wasn't on the job. We finished on the bottom of the ladder. Luckily, a lot of the really good players played in the second grand final. I played in the second grand final. I kicked 5 goals. I was BOG alongside Johnny Williams. And it was a terrific thing to do and to win because the boys wanted to be a part of it. And a lot of them honestly didn't really care about playing in the seniors or not. Not because Murray was an awful person, but he just, in the bottom line, he just couldn't coach as, you want him to coach. And, of course, Tommy came in and automatically, he demanded the discipline and the ability to train as he wanted us to train, and we did. And that was the difference between where we were. We had the ability. That was never a problem. But it was just the attitude and making sure that we were all on the same page, and we were with Tommy, and we went forward from there.
Was that a brutal training regime? I know I've spoken to other players from other clubs in the 1970s, and they said some coaches could be almost, they took a punishing mentality of players, that they were always slacking off, and some of the training routines were physically punishing. Did you have that with Tommy Hafey, or is it a bit more measured or let's say academic in its approach?
I believe it's very well documented that Tommy, as we know in 1977 and possibly at the other grand finals, that he never changed his regime. We trained the same way from the start of the year to the end of the year, the last training night. And that's why, we got 20,000 people plus at training at Victoria Park watching us before the grand final. And he's just running us into the ground. We're just working our bloody butts off And it's well documented that was the case. And if you ask any of the players that I've played with, they will all agree. Probably Kevin Morris won't, but that's a different story again. And as much as I love Tommy, and we all did, and we loved him, but Tommy, unfortunately, in the end, and one of the problems was we all voted that unless the committee or something is done about Tommy's way of going about football and the way he trained us, we didn't want him there. And the committee ended up getting rid of him quickly because they knew that there was going to be a problem on their hands with all of us. And we didn't necessarily want Tommy to go, but we wanted him to change his ways, change his thinking and his understanding. But Tommy was just very basic: run hard, get in front of the packs, kick the ball long, support your teammates. That was Tommy's ideology on football. And of course, he went to Geelong. What happened? Didn't last. Got sacked. Went to the Swans. Got sacked. Because football had changed so much so quickly that Tommy wasn't in that area of change. And that was the true story.
Just on that, Rene, there was the grand final itself, the 1977 grand final. It was an amazing game. I reckon I've watched it a dozen times. The frenetic play, the man-on-man, the skill in that game was absolutely extraordinary. 27 points up at three-quarter time, the Magpies. When you've gone over to the huddle, what were you thinking at three-quarter time?
Well, Tommy's address was as always, and that was to keep going and doing the things we'd been doing. And for some reason, I think we just took the foot off the pedal a little bit. And the sad thing about what happens when that happens, and you look around the ground, you start wishing and hoping that it isn't going to happen, that we're going to get beaten. And sure enough, it was very close, and it was a draw. And then in the second grand final, well, it's very well documented that North Melbourne didn't virtually train that week. They had a bit of a kick, and with us at Victoria Park with 20,000 watching, Tommy just said, let's go hard again, and we did it. And it was hot. I remember being very hot, and we were flat as a tack when we went out for the second grand final.
Also, another extraordinary factor in that grand final, Rene, both of those grand finals, was the non-appearance of Phil Carnahan.
Well, isn't that amazing? Phil's, as far as I'm concerned, Phil Carnahan's the best player I've ever seen play.
That's right.
And I love Harold Baldup, and I love Ian Stewart and Lee Matthews. We can talk about 50 players. But Carnahan had something very unique in his before his time. But with that went, unfortunately, that silly brain power of his, and it's been well documented, as we've seen thereafter. And Phil has paid the price with us players at Collingwood, because we know that he cost us a grand final by him not being out there and be a part of it, because he's a 3 or 4 goal kicker every week when he played, and also whatever he gave off to people like myself to help me kick goals, and others, Craig Stewart and Craig Davis. There were so many, and it was hard to believe that he wasn't a part of it, and he should have been.
Rene, how did you feel when Collingwood actually won the replay of the drawn grand final? Was it 2010 that happened?
Yeah.
How did that feel? Did that feel like that had put a line under that experience for you?
No, it brought a tear to my eye, because I sat there, watched it by myself, like I do like watching grand finals by myself, because no one can annoy me. And it did bring a tear to my eye. It absolutely did, because I thought, there's so many that I've missed out on, and it was just great because it's Collingwood and it's the black and white blood, and to see it, it's just fantastic. To feel it was fantastic.
I'm just going to jump in, Troy, if you don't mind. I'm dying to ask this question. One of the things, the research I was doing, I just wanted to point this out, Rene. One of your goals was so good, a policeman standing just inside the boundary line applauded it. And I thought, well, you don't see that very often, so well done to you for that. But Mitch Robinson was interviewed by Robbo in the Herald Sun today, I think it was. And he's a 200 gamer, 100 games at both clubs, Carlton and Brisbane. he made the point that for him it's not real football these days. I know you've made a similar point. Do you just want to expand on why you think that is? And do you find it interesting that a current player thinks the same way that you do? You were both you were a hard man. He is a hard man. You like a really great, exciting, physical style of play. Why do you think it's not real football to you?
Yeah, well, I like that comment by him because, funny enough, as the years have gone on, the last 2 or 3 in particular, Mitch Robertson has become a very, very crucial part of the Brisbane Lions, and he's a hard nut. I think previously he's probably gone off the handle a few times when he shouldn't have, which got him into trouble. But he's really become a leader and a great player. And for him to say that, look, the game is what it is, and we still love the game. But the game has become so simple. It's become a whole pile of players in one spot time after time, which has then become ugly because the ball doesn't move the way it should move in the old days, where we see the long kicks, the great marking, the handballs that are created by it. All the great things we used to love about football, but now it's just become a mishmash of a whole lot of stuff. The game now is, we've seen recently some sort of front-on type bumps. You can't even do that, which was, stuff that we love, which was bring back the biff or the bump and whatever we used to call it. Look, we've all got opinions on it, and we all tend to agree, which is our generation of footballers or people like yourselves that are watching the game. But how can we fix it? What can we do? I really don't know.
Yeah.
And that's the whole issue about football at the moment. What do we do to make it the game we want it to be?
It's a great question, Rene, by Tony, and Mitch Robinson brings it to the fore. I think as a young bloke going to the football in the 70s and 80s and early 90s, Rene, it was a man-on-man contest. You looked in the footy record, you saw the matchups, and you thought, it's going to be an absolute fantastic day.
Yeah, look, I agree that those matchups made football because, and I remember those matchups so well when Stan Elves played on Wayne Gordon and got thrashed. And you're looking for things that can make the game better. And you say, well, who am I going to put on Stan Elves now? Or who am I going to put on Len Thompson now in the ruck? So on and so forth. And it's only just something we just saw recently was Natanui absolutely get hold of Grundy, and we can see why, the way he tapped the ball and what he did in those areas of the throw-ins and the ruck, and that's the one-on-one stuff that we miss. And what can we do about it? Once again, it's up for argument.
Troy, I'm sure you'd agree, we could interview this bloke for the best part of 3 days straight. We have so many questions still to ask, Rene, so little time. So what we're going to do, we will take a break now and we will be back next week with part 2 of our chat with the great Rene Kink.